Hey everybody, Boris, let's begin Forex. Welcome to the weekly technicals for the commodity dollars for Aussie dollar, dollar CAD, and Kiwi dollar from May 6th to May 10th, 2019. Com dollars are going to be very, very wild this week. We have a tremendous amount of event risk, as well as the front of the week has started with just the most incredible event bomb. Trump administration announcing that they're going to increase tariffs on China, $200 billion worth of goods to 25% tariffs. That really escalates the trade war and certainly has massive, massive risk-off implications, especially on all the commodity dollars and Aussie and Kiwi in particular. So we are starting the week essentially with a 70.69 level in Aussie, and that's going to be very critical because I think now 70 becomes incredibly hard resistance and 69 support. Certainly could be tested as we go forward. In Caddy, that's going to should perform better because it's a little bit more removed, but it's still certainly very vulnerable to trade tensions, but not as much as Australia and New Zealand. Therefore, the 34.35 level kind of holds. And New Zealand now really could crunch its way down to 65 as we go forward, especially, and this is the critical thing, when we look at the calendar here, because we have two massive events here on the calendar going forward. We have the RBA decision on Tuesday night to you, Tuesday to you guys, Monday night to us, I guess. And we also have, which, by the way, and this is the interesting point, the market is actually anticipating a cut. Now, this is going to be very, very controversial because it's not fully priced in, but, and I think that's the key thing. I think if, although the market is anticipating it, it's not really priced in as much as the market thinks. So therefore, a cut to 125 will really pressure the Aussie much further down, just if nothing else by the fact that the Aussie US short curve is going to invert even further with US yields now leading Australian yields. That always is the single biggest pressure. Of course, they could come out with a cut and say it's a one and done, but regardless, I think the market is not going to take this, especially in light of the Chinese news, very positively. And so if the RBA does cut, and I think at this point the RBA may really feel forced to cut because of course the increase in trade tensions could make it fearful that that they're going to be behind the curve if they don't cut, if they don't ease policy at this point. So be watching this very carefully. That's going to be certainly a pivotal point. And then right after that, of course, is the RBNZ decision the next day, and the RBNZ decision going to have a massive impact because again here we don't have a definitive view, and the market is not really pricing in a rate cut. But it's quite possible the RBNZ could become aggressive, especially, this is the interesting thing here. I don't think the RBNZ is going to want to be in a position where the RBA cuts and the RBNZ doesn't, because it's going to create massive positive flows or negative flows on Aussie Kiwi, positive flows to the Kiwi, and going to, again, rebalance the Kiwi more strongly against the Aussie at a time when trade becomes even more vulnerable. So there's just a whole bunch of Game of Thrones calculations going on here that I think is going to make trading in both Aussie and Kiwi very, very interesting this week as the event risk kind of envelops everything else. And then, of course, end of the week on the com dollar side, we finish up with Canadian labor data, and that could be very interesting too, because here, if you get a very, very strong Canadian labor data against a very weak, vulnerable Australia, New Zealand situation, you're setting up for a classic kind of a pro CAD against Aussie, pro CAD against Kiwi trade, on the idea that the BOC still is dovish to hawkish scale, whereas of course RBA and RBNZ are dovish to, neutral to hawkish scale, and RBNZ and RBA are neutral to dovish scale, and that creates a very big disparity on the two plays. Let's take a look at the charts here and just see how things are opening. And of course, you can see already pre-market calculations here, Aussie already starting to break that very, very important 70 level. We're trading 69.66 pre-market, which really suggests that we could really run all the way down, especially on a pure rate cut with an open-ended communication saying that maybe more rate cuts to do, all the way down to 68 on a long-term basis. So Aussie looks very vulnerable to the downside here as it breaks the key support level. Kiwi looks the same here, looks to the downside. The Kiwi is holding bid just a little bit better, just underneath this whole level here of 65.80 as we open, but certainly 66 is going to be very vulnerable, and the critical thing is 65.50. Once that goes, that really opens up the run. Those are 64s, and here's dollar CAD trading back up against the reversal on Friday, but still very, very much below the highs here at 35.30. That's the key thing. I think that dollar CAD is going to be stronger, or the Canadian dollar is going to be stronger rather than the Aussie and the Kiwi, because it's far less impacted by all of this flows as we go forward. So should be a very, very interesting week in commodity dollars, especially because if we start breaking these very long-term seminal support levels, that really opens up a whole brand new down leg, especially if event risk confirms the price action. So watch both the price action, watch the event risk, and it should be an incredibly tumultuous week for us all. Wish you guys the best luck, the best of trading. Boris Landsberg, over and out.